anything specifically he was ever asked by Bhagwanji to carry and for him? You showed me a box of needles, injection syringes.
It is one thing which he had brought once to my mother, and he asked for the.
So this is the box.
This is the box. Yes, this is the box. This is the box.
As you open, these are the injection syringes of different size, different shape, in an old box which reads Down Brothers and Meyer and Phelps Limited, London, Toronto, are two places that can be read. So basically a multinational this thing. What happened? Tell us the story about this syringes. And when did it happen?
This was, I think, in between 77 and 78, 1977 and 78, when once Mama had brought this and he gave it to my mother and he said, would it be possible for you to find out the glass body, because these needles were fitted with a glass body, the syringe. Would it be possible for you to get something like this? I want to get these things replaced. So then my mother was very curious and she laughed and she said, where from have you brought all these old junks? At first he did not reply. He said, I have brought it from a friend. Then he said, I have been given. Then when further requested, he said, these things, they belong to my Maharaj. He is old. He needs to be replaced, these things, the glass portions. Would it be possible for you? He has asked me to get it replaced. My mother, she searched means she asked my father, my elder brother, my uncle, Boro Bazaar and many areas they searched, but wherever they went, they found not the single glass piece, but the entire thing, that is, that with a new needle also. So ultimately some of those things, about half a dozen of such things were brought, and my mother said that, Chunida, আমি তো ওরকম আলাদা জিনিস পেলাম না. It did not available, it did not get available in the market, they did not sell it, so what can be done? So he tried to fit the glass portion with this, the heads, but they did not, water came out. So he said, Kam Sharse, he used to speak in that, East Bengal dialect. He said, Kam Sharse, to oshud bhitore dile বাইরে এসে পড়বো, তার শরীরে ঢুকবো না. So maybe he found them useless. So he left the box with my mother and he took away the new ones. So this is how this box that remained with my mother, and my mother had put it in her cupboard, which later on I discovered. And we used to feel very amused to see a series of such needles, and the box was also very cute, very small and very, very beautiful box. This is how it all came, but we only came to know that this belonged to him.
That is a fascinating story, but then even more fascinating story is this ruler, Empire of India Life Assurance Limited, head office Bombay. So how did this fascinating ruler, wooden ruler, reach you? You said you had shown it earlier and said that this belonged to your grandfather.
Yes, this belonged to my grandfather, Shudhendu Mohan Das. The incident is 1976. Once, Bimal Nandy, he had come to my mother with a list of some khadi dress materials, and he used to bring all these things often, and he would say to my mother, "Tumi amar eta aina dite parba?" That was very affectionately said. So that year also, my mama came and he said, "I need a few things." And by that time, my mother, she had this idea that once these things are required, what sort of things, what material, how big, everything. She had that idea. So she took the list and she went to a shop which was named Bihar Emporium. And that shop was very close to Bashanti Devi College along Goriahat Road. So she purchased all these things which my mama had asked for, but along with that, she had purchased something more. I remember she had purchased some bed sheets, bed covers, curtains, mattresses, honey, one piece of sandalwood, all these things. One ashon, for puja, mattress, small mat. With all these things, she brought and she said that, Bimal da, আপনি তো চুনিদা আপনি তো এগুলি নিয়ে যাবেন, তো আমি কয়েকটা জিনিস দিলাম, তো আপনি যদি একটু ওনাকে পৌঁছায় দেন, এগুলি আমার শ্রদ্ধার্ঘ্য.
She gave that without knowing the identity of the Maharaj.
Yes, of course. No, my mother only knew that he was a holy man.
Holy man.
He was a holy man. He was a holy man whom my mama visited. But again, I must say, there was what I felt, an invisible decorum or invisible tradition in my family, that my aunt or my mother, she never questioned my mama. And when I remember it very vividly, because when I used to ask my mama, he would smile, he would not reply anything. Sometimes with a smile he avoided. And I used to ask my mother that, Mama did not reply to me, now you go and ask him. আমি বলতাম মামা তো বলেনি আমাকে, তুমি বলো, তুমি জিজ্ঞাসা করলে মামা বলবেন. Because I was small. Then my mother would say, বিপ্লবীদের কখনো জিজ্ঞাসা করতে নেই, ওরা তো বিপ্লবী, ওদের জিজ্ঞাসা করতে নেই কখনো, কখনো জিজ্ঞাসা করবে না. With so much of respect and reverence, she said. So we also grew up like that. We never asked. যা বললো বললো, ব্যাস, বলবে না তার খোঁচানো জিজ্ঞাসা করা, we never. Pestering, এটা করতাম না. So anyway, now what happened, my mother brought those things and my mama, he carried away. When he came back, he said, he was very pleased, very happy. Maharaj was very happy. She asked about you. And I said that she is a housewife. It is not possible for her to travel and to come and see you. But he has blessed you and he has said to give you something which will make you happy. So he had a piece of newspaper wrapped or a brown paper wrapped thing. I still vividly remember it was a brown paper on the top, and beneath that was a newspaper piece possibly belonged to Jugantor Potrika. Very old, reddish color. Here I must mention one thing. The discipline and the decorum of Bimal Nandy was such that although he traveled with this piece of thing, but he never opened it. He never opened to see what it was there, because that was entrusted to him, that was given to him by someone whom he so immensely respected that he never give it to him. It has to be delivered, that's it. Not opening to see what is there inside. Anyway, when that was given to my mother was very surprised. She took it with a surprise and with a smile.
And you were standing there while this was happening?
Yeah. I was there at home. I remember. That was a holiday. I was not at school. I was at home. And my mother said that, "Eta ki dise amar jone? Eta ki? What is this?" And my uncle said, "You have to open to see. I also do not know." When it was opened, this scale came out. And my mother was so surprised. She said, "What is this? A wooden scale, very old." And then my uncle, Chuni Mama, he said, "Oh, Eita." He was so surprised. He said, "Eita." I still recall with so much of surprise. He said, "Are Eita? এইটা তো কাকার টেবিল থেকে সুভাষবাবু নিছিলেন." And that night he was present there, 1940. And then he explained to my mother, because my mother was small during those days. She said that this belonged to your father. Subhash Babu had picked it up from his table. See, with so much of care and affection, he carried with him, he kept with him, and now he has given it back to you to remind you of those beautiful days. So much of respect and love he had for your father. Things were explained in that way. যে সুভাষবাবু এটা বুঝিয়ে দিলেন তোমার বাবাকে, তিনি আজও কতটা মনে রেখেছেন, কতটা শ্রদ্ধা করেন, স্নেহ করেন, তার স্নেহটা তিনি পেয়েছিলেন. And my mother was obviously in tears. And she said, চুনিদা, মানে অবাক হয়ে যাচ্ছে, এটা বাবার সেই সময়ের একটা জিনিস, আর উনি এতদিন পরে এটা আমাকে পাঠালেন. মানে কিছু বলার ছিল না, একেবারে অবাক হয়ে যাওয়া বলতে গেলে. And since then my mother always preserved it. She kept it very safely in her cupboard. Often I demanded that give it to me, আমি ওটা ব্যবহার করব. My mother said no, এটা উনি আমাকে দিয়েছেন, this is a blessing, এটা তুমি ধরবে না. It is only after the passing away of my mother in 2017 that I brought it out, and then I understood that it had a long history. And what appeared to me, this is totally hypothetical, no clue over here, it's my hypothesis that perhaps Subhash Babu had carried the scale and the business card of my grandfather to use for his future plan. When we read in the books that he had introduced himself as an agent of Empire of India Company, the very same company. So this is how it came back to us.
Wow. That is so amazing.
Yes, and
which means that he kept it with him all the time.
Perhaps, and this is indeed a question in my mind also, that did he carry this, or had he deposited some of his things somewhere to his old people, from whom he later on got back these things?
That is also a possibility.
But one thing is very sure. One, this came from that unknown sage. Secondly, it came to my mother. Thirdly, the same thing was picked up by Subhashji way back in 1940 from the table of my grandfather in Dhaka. So if we put all these clues, it comes to a straight line. It is self-explanatory.
That's amazing.
It does not need any other explanation.
Aroopda, in other sources, many other notes taken of Bhagwanji's conversations, his own letters written by his hand, we see a lot of reference to the Indo-Chinese War, the Indo-Pakistan War of 1965, and then the Bangladesh War of 1971. Did he ever bring up these topics, these issues with your uncle?
Only tidbits of information I found, that this sage, this Maharaj, often he traveled along the Himalayan paths. Where he went, for what purpose, he did not disclose. But he went, and one incident I must mention, it's a very important thing. Once he had asked my uncle, that is the only time he asked my uncle to bring something for him. My uncle had traveled to a very remote place of the Himalayas, which was directed by Maharaj, and he had given him a hand-drawn map that you go to this place, you meet this person. To get a bit of a pinch of powder, my uncle said, এত দূর গেলাম এত কষ্ট করে, দিল আমারে এক চিমটি একখানা নস্যির মতন জিনিস. He was a very witty person. And what was that? That was the poison, the venom of the cobras. The Naga sadhus, they use these things they call Shankhya. Now why that was required? Because just a grain of it, if taken in the ice cold areas, would keep someone's body warm. So my uncle said this is what he required, because he had to travel the icy paths. And it is only once that he had demanded such sort of a service from my uncle.
But nothing as such about the Bangladesh war.
About the Bangladesh war, even if they had something discussed, my mama did not disclose anything to me. But one thing he said, he was very fond of Mujibur Rahman. My uncle was very fond of Mujibur Rahman.
Okay.
And he said that এই ছেলেটা খুব বুদ্ধিমান, জানো তো, এর পড়াশোনা, এর অনেক কিছু আমাদের কলকাতা শহরে। আর ও যে বুদ্ধিমান, ও আত্মশক্তিটা কোথা থেকে পেয়েছে জানো? ও এমন একজন ভারতীয় মানুষকে ও ধরেছে, ও যোগাযোগ রাখে, ও মনে প্রাণে তার হয়ে গেছে, ও সেখান থেকে নেয়। বাট হি নেভার সেড হু দ্যাট পারসন ওয়াজ। অ্যান্ড নর্মালি হোয়াট উই হ্যাভ বিন tutored that it is obviously জাতির জনক মহাত্মা গান্ধী। সবাই গান্ধীজির থেকে অনুপ্রেরণা পান। So in those school days and younger days we also felt something like that, but now today I feel perhaps he had indicated something different, which obviously he did not disclose. But he was very fond of Mujib, and he said that he has found the right path and he has a contact with the right man from whom he derives all his energies.
So he indicated a connect between Bhagwanji and Mujibur Rahman.
That's it. But nothing more than that. Nothing more than that. And as about the war, he did not say anything, except that he had carried some woolen blankets to him and brought one back over here to get it washed nicely from some good shop. And that had a label. I remember that had a label. It was a military blanket.
Okay.
It was a military blanket. I recall, I saw it, but I do not remember because I was small.
Was it at least Indian or foreign?
No, it was a foreign made. It was a foreign made. It was a deep green colored label and something written with red and golden colored, embroidered over there. And the blanket was deep blue, dark blackish blue. That is it.
After 1985, how did your uncle get to know the news about his passing away?
Through someone whose name he did not disclose, but he said that one old colleague, he came to him and he said that চলে গেলেন, he is gone. So my mama said that I was at that moment in a bazaar place. আমি একটা বাজারে দাঁড়িয়েছিলাম যখন উনি এসে এটা বললেন। তো বাজারের অন্য লোকেরা যাতে কিছু মনে না করে, আমি সেই জন্য বললাম, আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, তুমি যাও, ঠিক আছে, ভালো হয়েছে। That was the thing. That man came, he said he is gone, and he said, okay, it's fine, go away.
এটা বলেননি যে ওই লোকটি কে ছিলেন সেটা?
না বলেননি, কিন্তু ওর সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ তো ছিল, কিছু মানুষের খুব গোপনে যোগাযোগ ছিল। তারপরে উনি বললেন যে শরীর তো সবারই যাবে, সুতরাং চলে গেছেন, বয়স হয়েছিল, শরীর চলে গেছে, কি করা যাবে। উনি কিন্তু একটা কথা বলতেন, মামা কখনো বলতেন না মরে গেছে, উনি বলতেন শরীর চলে গেছে, যে শরীর তো চলে যাবেই, তা আমারও চলে যাবে। কিন্তু এটুকু বলতে পারি যে দেশের মানুষ যদি তার কাজটা করে তাহলেই তাকে স্মরণ করা বা তার বেঁচে থাকা, আর যা হচ্ছে সেটা হলে আর ভুলে যাওয়া ছাড়া আর কোনো পথ নেই। But he was not very vocal about his passing away or what will happen after that. He did not. He was pretty silent. In fact, he was a very silent man all through. But he did not say much about it.
How old was he when he died?
I think he was 89 or something.
Bimal Nandy.
He was, you can calculate, he was born 1914.
1914? Achha.
He was born 1914.
And died in 2002?
2002, February.
Why didn't you depose in front of the Justice Mukherjee Commission?
Yes. A lot of people had been asking this question. The very simple answer is, these things, whatever the relics we have, they actually did not belong to me personally or my mother. They belong to my uncle Bimal Nandy. And he was very, very serious, and he made us a sort of promise that never during his lifetime these things should be brought out to public notice. That is the first thing. Secondly is that he always hated putting up these things in public, because he said that we have not done anything for that man whom he referred to as Maharaj. He said, মহারাজের জন্য আমরা কখনো কিছু কিন্তু করিনি, তিনি যা করলেন সেই অনুযায়ী আমরা কিছু করিনি। একটা জিনিস অন্তত করি, let him live the rest of his life in peace. শান্তিতে থাকুন, তাকে আর বিরক্ত না করা। And when he insisted that things, information, whatever regarding him should not be brought to public notice, we have to follow it. So that is the only reason why we never felt that we have to appear before the Mukherjee Commission with all these things. And the other thing which I personally felt, that if today someone asks me about the details of these things, then I will not be able to give you, because I do not have the details. Whatever the little scrap information and the materials I have, those only I can tell you, but not the details. So if I appear before a Supreme Court judge, then obviously he will be asking me a lot of questions. And in that case, I will be helpless. I won't be able to. And although Bimal Nandy was still living during those days, but he very categorically he avoided, and he said, if I go and stand before this commission, I have to speak out each and everything, because I cannot lie over there. Bimal Nandy had this very typical habit. He said, if I speak, I have to speak the truth. If I don't speak, I keep my mouth shut. I cannot be doing some storytelling over there to avoid these things. So better to avoid instead of telling some stories. So that is the first reason. Second thing is that we also sort of inherited the feeling that when he avoided, when the actual person, Bimal Nandy himself avoided, then why should we be going and telling all these things? And very honestly, we had no intention to disclose these things to public. But it happened so that last year, that is in 2021, when I was searching and I was looking for some information on the recorded voice of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, suddenly I discovered the name of one young gentleman, Kunal Bose, and I had telephoned him to ask that, I find you have interviewed so many people for a long time. Did you ever meet Bimal Nandy? He said no, and then the next thing he did, he arrived to me, he came to me, and he asked me, whatever the things you have, you show me, and he wanted me to record all these things. That is how it all began. So it is not actually my intention to put up these things in public, not at all, because
Till which year was Bimal Nandy alive?
Bimal Nandy passed away February, I think 2nd February 2002.
2002. Okay, so that was the time when the Mukherjee Commission was in session.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Bimal Nandy, one thing Bimal Nandy said, that there are many people who had appeared before this Mukherjee Commission, and they had been giving different types of versions. But he felt a bit irritated. He said that everyone is trying to paint him that he had been very close to me. But he was not at all close to anybody. He was close to everybody, but he was close to no one. That is the first thing. Second thing is that he never disclosed his entire story after coming back to India. What happened, where he went, what he did, to anyone in details. He gave part stories. And another thing my uncle said, that since we worked with him, we were taught and we grew up like that, never to question him. We never learned to question him. Whatever he said, we listened to that. Whatever he ordered, we followed that. The matter ended over there. We never asked him. But some people, he said, some people taking the undue advantage of his old age, and perhaps he was not in those very beautiful, glorious days, they used to ask him a lot of questions, which irritated this Maharaj, and maybe once or twice he had made such comments to my uncle. At times he used to feel very furious. উনি বলতেন ওনাকে প্রশ্ন করার সাহস রাখে কি করে, কিন্তু অনেকে এরকম প্রশ্ন করত। উনি বলতেন ওর বাঁচিন, বোঝেনি মানুষটা কি। But one beautiful thing which I felt, I must mention here, that my uncle had no habit of asking him any questions. Whenever he went there, he sat very quietly near him. Whatever he said, he followed. And I found that it is because of this that the Maharaj had opened a lot of information and a lot of feelings to him, which he knew that Bimal would never ask him and Bimal would never disclose.